Hello, this is Jon Speelman with the video version of this week's column, which I've named Post-mortems and Princes, and I'm just going to check that I am recording before I continue, so we'll have a splash of nonsense, and we are. Okay, good. So, Post-mortems and Princes. So I said that once upon a time, and I am aware that the Bundesliga is going on at the moment, so there is some over-the-board chess again, though with perspex screens in between, and there's no reason you shouldn't have a post-mortem after that. People used to have a post-mortem after a game. You used to play the game, and then you used to go somewhere and look at the games. In very posh tournaments, sometimes you went to a nice room where there was alcohol and I don't know, the first time I ever put on weight during a chess tournament was at one of the tournaments in France where there was both alcohol and dried fruit and nuts after the games, which was rather splendid. Anyway, I've always seen it as the post-mortem as something that is cooperative. You look at the game, you may show off a bit by showing some silly variations you saw, but basically you want to work out what's going on, and if you're playing at all a decent player, they will have seen things you haven't, and you think, oh, that's very interesting. But there are other people, I shan't name them, I'm thinking of some specific people, some people who really like to dominate the post-mortem and try to crush you in the post-mortem as well, so that they can crush you next again over the board. And then there are other people who just completely unrealistic about their positions. They've never got a bad position unless you checkmate them in the post-mortem, and then, oh well, okay, they got checkmated, but let's go on to the next line. I was winning that until I blundered or something. So anyway, and also of course there's sometimes verbal interaction during post-mortem, sometimes a bit of teasing. And I said that I believe, I've been told that Viktor Korchnoi actually used to choose his insults before the post-mortems. And they were he could be a bit crabby. Of course, he was brought up, Viktor the Terrible, during the siege of Leningrad. So, I mean, for heaven's sake, the poor chap, I mean, he was not a very easy man, but I got on perfectly well with him myself. He beat me more than I beat him, but I did win some games. I've got one of these later under one of my losses. And I was his second for a short time in Montpellier at the candidates tournament when I was the first reserve. When all the punks turned up, blast them, then I couldn't play. So I had instead to, well, I got a job from Viktor for about a few days before we couldn't work together, whatever happened. Right, so then I said, well, Viktor was one of the crown princes of chess, one of the people who's the strongest people ever not to be world champion, the strongest players ever who didn't become world champion. And I named Bronstein and Paul Keres, of course. Bronstein, I played Bronstein once. I don't know if Bronstein was quite as strong as Keres, say. Keres was fantastic. And Vassily Ivanchuk. And then when I was streaming that day, I said, who else? And I had thought of Akiba Rubinstein, but I hadn't added him because I don't know that much about players in the early 20th century. But I know Rubinstein was very strong. And I said, well, please, if readers would like to tell me that I'm talking nonsense or add other names, you're very, very welcome. Please do so in the comments if you'd like, or email me. I mean, I think my email is probably, it's certainly available somewhere. It's jonathan@jspeelman.co.uk nowadays. Anyway, I never played Keres, of course, because he died in 1975 when I was still a teenager. And I had a single game with David Bronstein. Excuse me, I had found a tissue, which is a draw at Lloyd's Bank in the Lloyd's Bank Masters. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. In 1989, and I've given that. It wasn't a particularly wonderful game, but I did have played a lot of games with Vassily Ivanchuk, and basically I thought I was playing God. I thought he was the player who was stronger than anybody else I have ever played, including Kasparov and Karpov, and I had about an equal number of draws and losses, which I mean, over that many games, about 10 games, there's nobody else I have a score quite as bad as that against. At least I beat Kasparov once, albeit in a rapid play game, and I beat Karpov once in Linares. So there we are. I said if Ivanchuk had had any sort of decent nerves, then he would surely have become world champion. Then just before the game, I subscribe to a word a day, which is wordsmith.org, which is somewhere where you get sent a word every day. Sometimes they're not particularly interesting, but during the week I got a word which I thought applied, and I shan't be as rude as to say precisely to whom or to what I thought it might apply, but it is the wonderful word verb to verbigorate. It's intransitive, i.e. it can't take an object. You can't verbigorate a country. So you could, and it means to obsessively repeat meaningless words and phrases. And if you would like to give examples of people or I don't know, books or whatever, or in which this seems to occur, then you are very welcome. Right, I'm going to go on to the games now, and there are 4 games. This is actually column 120th, and the first one is Jon Speelman, London Lloyd's Bank, 1989, and it's already turned around. Okay, otherwise I would have had to use Control F, thus in chess space to turn the board around, but we'll have it from my point of view. And it was in Nimzo Indian against David Bronstein, 1989. I don't know, he was in his 60s presumably at that point. I don't actually know when Bronstein was presumably in 53. He was in his late 20s or something, mid to late 20s when he played Botvinnik. I haven't actually checked. I suppose I might as well. I'm just going to go to Opera. Oh, this is a word game called Moot. This is to do with the a word a day. And Bronstein, what was it going to? Here we are, David Bronstein. David Bronstein was a Soviet chess player, born in 1950. Sorry, I don't want to restart my computer, it's being rumpy. So actually, what? Grandmaster in 1950, born when? Sorry, because he wasn't born in 1950. Born 1924. So actually in 89, he was just a bit older than I am now, he was 65. Anyway, I didn't also see, when did David Bronstein actually die? 2006, yeah. He lived in England for quite a while at one stage. Spent a lot of time in England anyway. So you played b5 because you're stopping knight c6 for the moment, and now black doesn't take on b2, because if you do, you're making, if you take, then you're making a huge diagonal. Gives the bishop. I should have said that, I suppose. Bishop a massive diagonal. Diagonal for just a single pawn. Have I managed to... No, I've almost avoided typos. Good. Okay, so we played some moves, and the engine says that rook d1 should give a small edge, which is reasonable. We played some more moves, and I managed to get in d4, which basically, I'm sure I had different ways to get a decent position. I actually went there now. Rook a4, possibly I missed rook a4, I don't know, because I was trying to play knight b4, or knight takes d4, and rook d4 actually stops me from winning the pawn back, so I don't know if I missed that. I wonder if I... missed this. Keeping the pawn, preventing knight b4. it doesn't. Knight b4. Anyway, I got enough play anyway. My pieces came out quite nicely. And black's enormously active here, obviously. He took this now, I don't know. If rook a1, I guess I would have gone knight takes c4 then. And now I found a way to make a draw, which I did. It was an honour to play Bronstein then as well. I was probably quite happy to make a draw. And we drew. So that was my only game with David Bronstein as far as I can remember. I think I would remember. I mean, he was, after all, a World Championship challenger. And he's the only one I found in my database. Then I've got a couple of games against a game against Vassily Ivanchuk and then two with Viktor. So this is a game with Ivanchuk. This was Linares 92, and I mean I just found it really hard to play Ivanchuk after a while. I don't know how many games this was into, and I just managed very quickly to get a position where I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. You can play a3 or bishop e2, but then they do play d5. So I played d4. And I played this funny move, and Ivanchuk actually sort of tried not to chuckle at this point. The silliness of my move. I mean, I should play a3. Just bite the bullet. What happened was, I suppose I have made him play d5, which in some ways is a good thing, in the sense that now I can liquidate my pawns, but he's got such a lead in development that my position is not much good at all. I wonder if I should go bishop e3. I don't know. It all felt pretty awful. If bishop b2, then basically he's got e3 coming, he's got bishop h3 coming. It's all falling apart before I'm ready. He's got knight g4, bishop g4 and knight g4. It's just a bad position. I managed, actually, I didn't do, given how bad it all was, I gave him a pawn back, which was fairly sensible. And I took this. And I thought, well, okay, I've got opposite bishops, a reasonable pawn structure, I can fight, and I've got reasonable drawing chances. This is miserable, but I'll try to swap as many rooks off as possible. If we can get a position with queens and opposite bishops, it should be drawable, because you only set up one passed pawn on the queen side. If we had one rook on, I'll keep on opposing rooks, it'll be okay. And he went there, which I don't think I'd seen, and I thought, oh, he is attacking me. And I must say, I think this is a fantastic move. Everybody always used to say, people like Michael Adams and Nigel Short, and when they were, when I was going down a little and they were better than me, but I mean, everybody said, no, they just didn't know what Chucky was going to do, what Ivanchuk was going to do. He had no idea. He was so, I mean, just rook g4, I mean, it looks, I mean, how can you attack the king? There's perfectly good keyboard in front of the king. And he went there to, he just said, I'm going to checkmate you, comrade. h6, h4. That's a really bad move, actually. Question mark. I mean, presumably, I don't know if I can play f3 or something. Oh no, actually, it's not given that as that bad a move. I think h4. I'll make it dubious. Okay. I don't know. Is that dubious? That is dubious. Okay, he just took aim. And this beautiful move. And suddenly, I'm not able to prevent awful things happening. It's all falling apart. I suppose I should have tried g3. Engine is, well, okay. I go g3, I'm going to get mated in the long white diagonal somehow, aren't I? And suddenly this happened. Not a good idea. And this. And it's all gone completely. I've died in about 30 seconds. I was hoping for bishop g2 when I could swap queens and play rook g1 and play a position. But it wasn't to be. Queen a8. Lovely move. Is that the only winning move? That's a beautiful move, isn't it? Queen a8. And I just thought, you know, this is fantastic. Obviously I didn't enjoy it. And obviously he played the aesthetic Queen a8 rather than the unaesthetic Queen b7. Why would you ever allow rook to the 7th to hit your queen? Because he was going to go Queen f3 anyway. And I think I resigned. A beautiful white square attack by a true genius. And that's what I think. I think the guy is fantastic. And I always root for him when I see him in tournaments. I think, you know, it's a shame that sometimes he can't control his nerves. Right, the other two games. There's one lost to Korchnoi where he managed to get the queens off very early, which was not really to my advantage against Viktor. He probably thought I was just a glorified hacker, but I could hack. And the second one, I hacked him to pieces. Right. So this is annotated by Lyubomir Fatachnik in Informata 47, and there are some notes, and I picked it up out of my own database. So there were already some notes where I must have added bits and pieces without saying who's which. But the words are all mine. Any words in these annotations are mine. So, I don't know why I played the Slav, who knows. Didn't know what I was doing. Of course, check is an interesting move. Bishop d2, I could have gone Queen a6. And c5, and you quite often do go c5 when they've put the knight in d2, because the knight in d2 isn't putting pressure on d5. If you play knight takes, knight c4, this must be quite a pretty good version of the Catalan for white, I would have thought. I don't know if white can try to play b. I mean, you've taken c5 next, and it just doesn't look. I'm not happy. I wonder what the engine says. Maybe it says it's not. Yeah, it's only giving plus equals after Queen a6. Queen a6. I thought d takes c5, but then knight d7. Maybe e4. Knight b6. Yeah. Bring the boys in. You've got, you know, quite good control. I mean, it's a shame you've had to play e4 because that's this pawn. Sorry, wrong piece. This pawn has killed this diagonal, but it's still better for white. Clearly, I think maybe not so much. Looks like a. On second thoughts, maybe blacker. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Black, since the queen will be excellent. On a6. Okay, anyway. I allowed myself to get an isolated pawn, and I did get a lead in development. And Viktor, yeah, got the queens off. Now, I mean, black's got quite good development here. Of course you don't take in c1, you'd be insane. Because then you'd have no lead in development, nothing. There'd be nothing. Yeah, you wouldn't dream of doing that. I suppose it'd be rook a takes c1. I'm not actually even sure which rook. I think rook f takes c1. Keeps a2 protected. Okay, I'm not sure. I wouldn't have dreamt of swapping those. And now, I mean, black is still almost okay, and I could go knight e4, but I'd be a bit worse. I went there, which actually is all right. Had to go e3. Now you can go knight takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, and I said it's a metaphysical question whether it's plus equals or plus over line, but it's certainly a plus for white, and disgusting for black, who doesn't have properly developed pieces. I don't know if you can go rook e2 maybe. Maybe it's not quite so bad as I think. But my feeling is that really you've got every chance of ending up a pawn down or something. And if the position stabilises, then with those pawns in the centre, it's going to be pretty horrible. Anyway, I kept on playing moves trying to equalise. And I took now, which actually is not a very good idea. I think d4 is actually okay, probably. Yeah. You can't go bishop d4 because of rook c4, as Tachnik pointed out. But you can go there, and you're pretty active. And who knows? The engine actually is saying that's equal. So in fact, my play wasn't so bad up to there. But I now got a position. Bishop e2 is interesting. Stop knight c4. And okay, I've got a nice knight in the centre, but these lousy kingside pawns. And probably I ought to be okay. I don't know if that's a very good idea. Rook e d8, he takes and goes rook d. I mean, we can play this ending. And obviously it's a bit better for white. How much, I don't know. If I get my knight somewhere sensible... I mean, the main problem with these pawns is that they don't cover any squares. So if you have a normal pawn structure... If you had a normal pawn structure and the king side is black, you'd be absolutely fine here. But here, you're always going to be in danger of a king walking in one way or another. And you can't cover f5 or h5, so it's going to be unpleasant. And I tried to play actively, as I normally do. That's a very good move. Realising that it's worth weakening your second rank to fix the pawn on f5. I mean, Korchnoi played this game pretty well, I thought. And now he took this as well, which is brave. Now, I probably ought to have just played chess, just said, all right, I'm a pawn down, and you can play chess, and maybe you'll win, maybe you won't. But I actually went there. And now I should have gone to g6, definitely. I went to g8, which is ridiculous, and after this, I just resigned because the rooks have come off, and now we get an ending where I'm a couple of pawns down. If I'd gone here, it would not have been absolutely over. This is one way to play this position. I don't know why I'm not going to f4 actually. Okay, and basically, and this should be winning. I mean, if, for instance, if king to there, there's this move, and if a5. I don't know if you could try king f6. I mean, it doesn't look that easy to me. King f6. Sorry. Or king f6, you go here, don't you? Probably go rook b5. And I mean, you're going to be able to keep more or less keep control, but it's never that easy. Probably go h3 or h3. I think I'd play for the moment, because I don't care about losing if rook to b2 to there. I don't care at all that. Is rook b5 a problem? No, because I can take it, and otherwise, as long as the white king gets off the back rank, then that's going to be enough. These are candy. And rook b5 you can take, which is rather important. You're inside the square, so you have to go back, and now you just bring your king up first. And once you bring your king up, this is certainly winning, as the engine can see down there, and I could turn on the in-game database as well, probably table base. Okay, that was a game I lost to Viktor, where I tried much too hard to equalise. And then the last game is one of my best games ever. Was from Brussels, 1988, and I was dangerous bod by then. It was one of my best tournaments. So was the Lloyd's Bank game with, just looking there, was that in as late as 89? So really I was quite a strong player then. I hadn't realised. Anyway, this one, I started very well in Brussels, but then it fell off. So this was a modern. I used to try to wind Viktor up, because I thought if I get to some strategically clear position, he'll be happy. So to make a mess. Played a4. I mean, a4 is really what black wants white to play, but it's not clear it's a bad thing. I mean, normally they go something like f3 and queen d2 and let you play b5, b4. Okay, we played some moves. And d5. Apparently this was a novelty in this position, but obviously it's been played without a6, a4, and it's not clear who that favours, because with a6, a4 there's a weakness in b6 and sometimes. They can try d5 as well. I think without a6, a4, d5 may be a good move, and knight e4. There are some games in which white just starts hacking and trying to kill black. I mean, the thing is, you can reach this position a tempo down if you go e4, c6, d4, d5, knight c3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, h3, knight f6, e5, knight e4, d5, knight, sorry, knight f6, and then you go, then the white goes e5. I'll just go back here. E4, c6, d4, d5, c3, g6. This is quite similar, it's rather similar. And I believe it's supposed to be bad, be very dubious. The black, if white lets rip. White lets rip. And let's just get some reference. We just stick an engine on, because I thought bishop c4 castles was supposed to be very dangerous. I have a feeling, and now something maybe even like h4, or yeah, I think this is supposed to be quite a dangerous thing, though actually this is giving. Okay, anyway, this is nothing to do. Let's just with this game. I just suddenly thought about that. Anyway, we've got to this position, which has nothing to do quite with what's occurred. c5 is what you have to do. Could play d5 as well. I mean, obviously there are queen c7, and he played queen d5. And I think I just thought, I'm going to do this. I don't care. I'm going to start hacking against Viktor, because this is a good idea. And I kicked him, and I went there. And unfortunately, this is a mistake. I should have gone knight c6. He gets very decent position, and I did this. And I thought I had a good game. But the evening after the game, Jon Nunn said to me after a while, "What about this move?" And I cursed a bit when I realised that this had refuted my beautiful game. Because you got b4 happening after queen a5 check, and it just happens there's no good move. It's just bad luck, really. You're in the middle of playing your masterpiece and you're lost for a move. Seems to happen quite often to me, unfortunately. There's one inaccuracy in the opening. Bishop c4, check. So I'm basically saying, all right, mate, I'm going to get my pieces out. I don't care about your pseudo attack. Your king's in the centre, and it's going to be me who's attacking. He actually took this. Rook c1, we go here, 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 and obviously must be all right-ish. But it would have been a reasonable way to play, actually. Viktor was probably provoked. He didn't believe all this nonsense. Now, he should have gone queen takes d5 here, actually. And it goes queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes, queen b4. And then I did rook d8. And you get to play this. And I did know this, and I thought that I was at least equal when I got the hit bishop e5. I did know that. So, and maybe Houdini prefers to play bishop e5 at once, I don't know. But anyway, he went bishop d2, and now I get a massive attack after bishop d3 check, which is an easy move to play. I mean, if he takes the bishop, you play knight f4 double check, and queen takes d2, and you just look at this position, and you know you're going to checkmate him up a tree. I presume you are. Queen c4, d3 says the engine, and yeah, you're winning a piece back, and everything is fantastic. So presumably he has to put a rook in e1 now. I haven't yet seen exactly. I suppose if he puts a rook in e1, you can probably do this move. That would do, wouldn't it? And that obviously is going to be checkmate, comrade. So, excuse me, that's really rude because it's Viktor. Checkmate, yeah. Okay. Of course, he's not a comrade. I mean, sometimes a comrade when I'm just being jokey, but not to Viktor. Please, so I apologise to his ghost. Right, so, I mean, it's not surprising. So he played king e1, and I got this pawn, and he gets to attack me. He plays f5, but it still isn't mate, which is bad luck because it needs to be checkmate for this to mean anything at this stage. Nothing but checkmate is going to help. So it's all right. It's like check here, and he's threatening mate. And I found a continuation. Knight takes f5 is a good move. Opening up, preparing to play queen e5 check. And he took the bishop. And now it turns out that I can change the attack from the black squares to the white squares, which is rather lovely. Obviously, if king d1, I go queen e2 and rook a8, and rook takes bishop and queen c2 mate. And he resigned because after rook h2, I take his rook. He's got all these pieces aimed beautifully on the king's side, and they're not doing anything at all. So, but after rook to there, takes, check here, check. King h1, I can go either rook g3 or knight g3, or king to there, check here. Bishop takes queen. And I win only 14 pieces or something. Well, I win a whole rook at least. So, actually probably 2 rooks. And, well, there we are. So that was me hacking against Viktor. And when we hacked, things went a lot better for me than when we were playing quiet positional chess. Right, well, I hope you've enjoyed these games and my little small anecdotes. And there wasn't much, was there? There was a bit about Viktor. Preparing his insults was the main one. He didn't insult me normally after the game, actually. We just sort of looked at them. I don't know if he looked particularly objectively. And then we are. I'm going to stop then.